My name is Buffy Beaudoin Schwartz, and I'm the Executive Director of the Women's Giving Circle of Howard County. And we are a very proud sponsor of this year's festival. The Women's Giving Circle is building a community of philanthropists to address the needs of women and girls here in Howard County. And anybody can join, and anybody can be a philanthropist. We're especially pleased about this program featuring Motherhood, and we're very grateful to Books in Bloom for sponsoring the period product drive that we're having right now. Our table's over there to the left if you want to learn more information about it. And the products are going to our partners at Columbia Community Care. We're very excited about that. Now, I'm excited to turn this over to the amazing producers of Spilled Milk.
Is this thing on? Yeah, it's working. Hi, and welcome to Spilled Milk. I'm Amanda Loudon, one of the producers, and it is lovely to see you all here today. We began this Howard County-based essay show a year ago, and we think that we delivered an amazing array of voices. This year, we're back, and we've rebranded with our partnership, Books in Bloom. This new format allows us to share these stories with a wider audience, and that's a win for everyone. One thing that hasn't changed, however, is the quality of the essays that you're going to hear today. You're in for a real treat.
Hi all, I'm Susan Thornton Hobby. I am also a producer of Spilled Milk. Very happy to be in partnership with Faye and Amanda. I'm so happy to see so many of you here today. Thank you for coming. We'd love to hear from you after the show. But during the storytelling, which is going to be full of so many feelings, please silence your cell phones. Your programs, everybody have programs? Okay, if we need more programs, can we get those out? Your programs list everybody in order, which is wonderful. And on the back, there's a QR code that tells everyone how to contribute to our charity. You'll hear more about community care, Columbia Community Care from Faye.
Hey everyone. Hello, beautiful people. Are you up? Are you awake? Are you excited? I'm glad to hear it. I'm Faye McCrae. We are so excited to welcome you. I'm part 3 of our producer trio, also a little taller than my crew, so it's a little bit hard here. I'm here on behalf of my company, Culture and Quill, and also they're a proud host of this event. But I am especially delighted to introduce you today to this year's beneficiary, Columbia Community Care. Columbia Community Care is a grassroots, volunteer-led organization committed to food equity, dignity, and mutual aid for families in need right here in Howard County. We are so proud to share that this year's proceeds will benefit this incredible organization. And here with us today to say a few words is the Executive Director, Erica Chavarria.
I am short. Good morning. Is it morning? Morning, yes? Okay, good morning. My name is Erica Chavarria. I'm the founder and executive director of Columbia Community Care, a nonprofit organization that was founded during the pandemic, inspired by my students. I was a teacher at Wildlake High School. Wildlake in the house? Woo! Yeah. We jumped straight into action with the community involved. Columbia Community Care showed the need that actually existed in Howard County, but also the power of love and what happens when community comes together to serve each other and to make sure we care about one another. So we have a hunger relief operation. We serve about 300 to 400 families per week in Howard County. Just this morning, we served about 350 families at our in-person sites. We also have a free grocery delivery service that goes anywhere in Howard County. So even though our in-person sites are in Columbia, we do serve any family with no question, no identification needed, no application process, nothing. If you are in need of food, we deliver for you. We also have expanded because we listen to community and respond to the needs that we hear. So we have amazing youth programs, youth mentorship programs, as well as community programs. And ironically, and actually perfect serendipity, we have been focusing on programs that relate to mothers, those who mother, and moms and women. So we're really excited to be here. If you are a board member of Columbia Community Care, please raise your hand. All right, we got Jansen Evelyn in the house and Jessica Nichols. So if you have any questions, you can direct them to them, okay? And we would really appreciate your volunteer time, your donations. It takes a lot of effort to continue our operations, so we really are grateful for our Howard County community. And I am going to finish up by what you're really here for, which is to hear our amazing stories of motherhood. So without further ado, let's give a round of applause for Spilled Milk.
Hi, everyone. I'm not trying to be cool by wearing sunglasses. I had eye surgery this week, so I'm kind of light sensitive. Okay, I am Laura Sturza, and this is The Super Saleswoman, an homage to my 99-year-old mom. My mother, Evelyn, could sell anything to anyone. When I was 8, she first enlisted my help with her antiques business, convincing my school's principal that it was okay if I missed a few mornings of school each month to join her for work. Mom sold the principal on the scheme by calling our job as roving hucksters a great educational experience. Mom and I rooted through people's cast-offs at Maryland yard sales in the 1960s and 70s. Typically, there were piles of junk with the occasional gorgeous gem hidden in the mix. I might discover a bold mid-century print of abstract birds buried in a stack of scratched, unplayable record albums. We hauled our merch to weekend antique shows in Maryland, DC, Virginia, and beyond in an enormous Mercury marquee. We had the back seat removed so we could pack more merch in. I studied Mom's penchant for stretching the truth whenever she wanted to land a sale. If a prospective buyer wasn't sure about an item or they said they were just looking, Mom shifted into high gear, telling stories to make the products seem more valuable. Oh, I got that piece from a captain's wife, she said. A friend of mine once stopped by our booth at a show near a military base. My friend was awed by Mom's performance when a buyer responded with, "Which captain? I wonder if I know them." Mom didn't miss a beat. "Oh, I'm so sorry. I just don't recall. I meet so many exciting people in this business. I never knew which elements of Mom's stories were true and which were fabricated." She still insists that almost everything she said was only lightly exaggerated. Sometimes I cringed when I pictured buyers proudly recounting those tales when they showed off their purchases, but I comforted myself with the thought that customers likely enjoyed retelling Mom's stories. I hoped it helped them believe that their gems were more precious. It wasn't until I was an adult that I learned why becoming a successful saleswoman was my mother's destiny. She had grown up in the Bronx during the Great Depression, the daughter of a secondhand vacuum salesman who sold door to door to support their family of 7. Mom was the second youngest of 5 kids, but the one with the strongest sales drive at the time. So, as a child, she assisted her father, jumping in when he failed to close a sale. The pitch from his convincing daughter was so effective that buyers, they ponied up for those used Hoovers. Mom put those skills to work in future jobs. She became a saleswoman for whom no meant revving up for advanced negotiations. After her dad passed away, Mom revealed he'd been a terrible salesman. He laid it on too thick, she said. They saw his desperation. You have to reel him in with a good story, make them believe they can't live without what you're selling. Over time, Mom parlayed her work as an antiques dealer into an enormous business, managing 30 antique shows each year, featuring up to 100 dealers at malls including Tyson's Corner Center, Springfield Mall, and Wheaton Plaza. She was an entrepreneur 50 years ago, long before it was common for women to run their own businesses. I believe she was a workaholic, even before the term was coined in 1971. I wondered whether she felt that with each antique show and each dollar made, she was freed from her past and could put to rest the memories of every door that had been slammed on her and her father in their eternal climbs up the staircases of those 6-story Bronx walk-ups. But I was wrong. No matter how successful I was, it didn't erase what my family went through, she recently said. You don't forget living in poverty. It's what made me good at my work. Eventually, Mom stopped running shows, but ever the wheeler dealer, she held on to a lot of merchandise. When she was 93, she recruited my husband and me to help her unload it. He and I schlepped her things to an indoor neighborhood sale at her retirement community. There were about 40 other sellers in the large, all-purpose room. It was packed with buyers, a rowdy group of oldsters trying to score some steals. My mom is all of 5 feet, but she always upsold her height to 5 feet 2. She seemed taller when she closed a sale, which as a younger woman she had done from a standing position. But in her elder years, she did business from a chair and employed her signature loud voice. No megaphone needed. I'm closing everything out. These are worth much more than the selling price. If you see 2 necklaces you like, take 2 for $7. I didn't know the community sale we helped her run that day would be the last time I'd see Mom shine as a super saleswoman in the antiques business. Later that year, she began needing more help with everyday tasks, but resisted moving from her condo. I spent the next months employing the very techniques I'd learned from her by trying to sell her on the idea of moving. We finally settled her into an assisted living place where she could get more support. Nowadays, she uses her skills to convince fellow residents to come join her in art classes and creative writing programs. Her unfailingly optimistic attitude means that if she catches one of the staff members feeling low, she peddles her powers of positive thinking. It's the secret to my longevity, she says. Plus, my upbeat attitude helped me survive the pressures of running that business. It didn't hurt with making all that gelt either. When Mom visits our home, it is as if she's walking through a museum of her career, marveling over the antiques she scored and gave to me. While she's had some memory loss, she has an astounding recall of the origin story of each of these precious objects. Your father and I got this lampshade before you were born, she said, picking up the 6-inch tall, iridescent beauty. We got it from an elegant older lady on Capitol Hill. She points to a painting of a street scene in Africa. Oh, we got that on a trip to Philly. I told your father to follow the hand-lettered signs for the garage sale. He grumbled about it because we were late for a family visit, but I knew we would find something great there. These stories and all our other embellishments are woven into the trinkets my mother has given me. I can never be sure whether each story is true or invented, and I no longer care.
Hello, I'm Will Cole. I'm reading He's My Mom. I'm not here to tell a story about my mom. I'm here to tell a story about me as a mom. When my son was a teenager, I transitioned from his mom to his dad. So I'm what you call a seahorse dad, a man who has given birth. Growing up, I was a tomboy, but a middle child of 7 kids in a Mormon family in Utah. So exploring my identity meant shoving myself into the mold my parents modeled. Stay-at-home mom standing dutifully by her husband. I did begin that preordained journey. I married a Mormon man when I was 19 and gave birth when I was 22, the age my son is now. His name is Juma. When Juma was 2, his other dad and I left the Mormon faith. We began the potty training journey and the exodus from the church on the same weekend. We made a family trip to buy big boy underwear for all 3 of us. Over the following weeks, my son switched between his SpongeBob underoos and pull-ups, and I swapped my Mormon underwear for the least girly boy shorts I could find. That I preferred to call them big boy underwear for myself should have been a clue, but fast forward to the summer my son turned 15. He'd spent a few weeks visiting friends and family and just returned home, and I had spent the past year quietly exploring my gender identity. We sat on the steps outside catching up. Apropos of seemingly nothing, he came out to me as straight. I was proud of him and myself, not for being straight. I actually always hoped he'd be gay, but because it meant I'd raised him to be LGBTQ friendly. Straight was not the default in my house. Since we were on the LGBTQ subject anyway, I decided it was a good time for me to come out to him. At the time, non-binary felt like the right label. Hey, bud, I've got something important to tell you about me. No, don't say it. I know what you're gonna say, don't say it. This was not the reaction I was expecting. I was baffled. Dude, this is important to me. I'm non-binary. His face hardened. I don't believe you. What do you mean you don't believe me? What if I'd said to you, I don't believe you're straight? He's not. I wouldn't care because I know I'm straight. Teenagers. I felt myself getting upset, so I stepped away. After a couple hours, we reconvened, and I told him some of the things that made me feel I'm not a woman, like declaring I'm gonna be a boy when I grow up when I was 3, and thinking I'd grow up to have whiskers like Dad, and never feeling comfortable in women-only spaces, and 1,000 other things I've felt throughout my life. Dropping the label woman was liberating for me, not because I didn't want to be a woman, but because I'm just not one. Then I saw it click with him. Oh, okay, cool. What pronouns do you want me to use for you? That's my boy. As the months went by, I wasn't quite settled with the non-binary label. I continued in therapy, journaled, and inhaled trans memoirs. Eventually, the denial fell away, and I admitted to myself, I'm a guy. Juma was the first person I told, and he was on board. You say you're a guy, you're a guy. Like a teenager, he was most worried about how this might affect him and his school finals. I promised to keep things under wrap for a few months, but I did tell his dad, and we divorced a year later. As I slowly accepted my gender identity, I began to ponder what this meant for me as Juma's mom. At one point, I asked him if we could find an alternative label for mom, because mom felt very gendered to me. But you are my mom. It's not gendered to me. You're just mom. And I dropped it. I said, okay, this was a transition for both of us. After a year or so, Juma revealed that he had been mad at me because he thought he was losing his mom. But when I kept showing up for him, he realized I am the same person. I love him just as much. I just have a different look now. And I'm happier and better adjusted, which means I can be a better parent. It's been almost 8 years since Juma and I came out to each other. Recently, I asked him how this landed with all his friends and peers. He said for this, peer pressure didn't and doesn't matter. That the conversations we had at the time impressed on him how deeply I felt and how sure I was. And that mine was the only opinion that mattered. He said that when he mentions he has 2 dads, some people assume or ask if he's adopted, but he explains, and everyone has been chill about it, or even think it's kind of cool. But Juma also shared that he felt some guilt because he feared that his existence reminded me that I didn't always have a man's body. He assumed that I felt bad that my body had done woman things. And I can see his logic, but it's not how I feel. I'm grateful that I lived as a woman for 40 years before transitioning to live as a man. Though that doesn't mean we should force trans people to live in their assigned sex, I am proud to be a man who has given birth and breastfed. Those things didn't make me feel gender dysphoria. They were the only times I felt connected to my body before my transition. That is true, and it is true that removing my breasts and taking testosterone were life-saving. I love that I'm a man who has experienced motherhood and all the connection and complexity that brings. Juma calls me dad now. But I'll always cherish being Juma's mom. Life is beautifully, wonderfully not binary.
Shorter. There we go. I have a theater background, so I'm used to a mic. Hi there. I'm Rowena Winkler, and this is that time I went into postpartum psychosis. Good thing I numbered my papers. 8:00 p.m. My husband Derek texts 911 because my behavior is concerning and I haven't slept. By the way, I had no idea that you could text 911. Apparently it's for domestic violence type situations. Or in my case, it's used by husbands who are running out of ideas for helping their slipping into psychosis wife. Grassroots crisis intervention shows up to make an assessment. The woman's name is Angelica. I whip out my musical theater prowess and I sing to her, Angelica! but she has no idea what I'm talking about. She tells me that it's probably a good idea if I go to the ER. I agree, but first, I need to pump. Derek is having trouble locating my pump parts. I do the best that I can with what I have. I'm afraid that I'm going to be taken away from my children, that I've done something wrong. I think that there are family members and friends waiting for me downstairs, that I just need to get past this next part of the game, and they'll all be there. They're not. Instead, I grab my purse and put on my shoes. Derek looks worried. At least he looks like something is wrong when I walk out the door and into my friend Stephanie's car. On the way to the ER, I think I spot my mom's car. She lives in New Jersey. I say, "Mommy?" But the car goes the other way. No worries. I'm sure that she's part of the show. She'll be at the hospital later. We get to the ER, and Angelica tells us that we'll just tell the front desk, postpartum psychosis. Well, I took this to be my line, and so I walk right up to the check-in counter and I say, "Postpartum psychosis, please." Like I was ordering off a menu. Luckily, the staff whisked us away to the back room before anyone could catch us on video. Speaking of which, this portion of the evening is when I really started going deep into the psychosis. I started recognizing staff members of the hospital, thinking that they were my ex-boyfriends or friends from high school. I was thinking that the song "Mary Had a Little Lamb" was playing on a loop at the ER. I started getting paranoid that my antics were being recorded by people in the ER and that I would be considered a hot mess on TikTok and that I'd go viral, but in a bad way. That's why I didn't even go to the bathroom alone. Thank God for my friend Stephanie, who rolled with all of my psychotic punches. 3:11 a.m., got my first round of medication, 2 milligrams of Ativan. 5:30 a.m., finally fell asleep after being awake for 24 hours plus. 10 o'clock a.m., Kira, the social worker, visits. I thought she was an actress in the show that I'm a part of. I don't think she's a real social worker, but I answer her questions anyway. 3:30 p.m., Derek is notified that I'm going to be transferred to Suburban Hospital. Oh, that trip was a blur. Though I do remember in the ambulance thinking that I was in an escape room. The EMTs were a bit frustrated when I kept trying to remove my restraints and touch various objects in the vehicle. Now, once I was in the hospital, I did a lot of singing. I took a bouquet of carnations, I stole a vase from the dining area, and I marched down the halls thinking that I would see Derek on the other side. And I can hear the bells, my head is spinning, I can hear the bells, something's beginning. Everybody says that a girl who looks like me can't win his love. Well, just wait and see, 'cause I can hear the bells, just hear them chiming, I can hear the bells, my temperature's rising, I can't contain my joy, 'cause I finally found the boy I've been missing. Listen, I can hear the bells. Another time, I sang at a locked door one morning, thinking that Derek would start singing from the other side and save me from this place. Never knew I could feel like this. Like I've never seen the sky before. Want to vanish inside your kiss. Every day I love you more and more. Listen to my heart, can you hear it sings? Come back to me and forgive everything. Seasons may change, winter to spring, but I love you until the end of time. Then I packed a bag in my room and sang Miss Saigon. My delusional thought process was by acting like a refugee from the show that I could somehow escape the hospital and be reunited with my kids. The red lights from the exit sign outside my hospital room made me believe that I was on stage, ready to be a part of the red light district in Vietnam. You will be who you want to be. You can choose whatever heaven grants, as long as you can have your chance. I swear I'll give my life for you. No one can stop what I must do. I swear I'll give my life for you. All right. Then there was that other morning that I woke up early and marched to the activities room. One more day all on my own. One more day with him not caring what life I might have known, but he never saw me there. One more day before the storm, at the barricades of freedom, when our ranks begin to form. Will you take your place with me? The time is now, the day is here. I'm trying to open the cabinets, waiting for others to join me. But no one's there. One of the nurses sits me down on the couch and tells me that I need to stop singing, that I'm dying. At least that's what I heard anyway, but who knows what's true? Here's what is true. I suffered from this mental illness. I had postpartum psychosis, and I hope that by diving into my psychotic break, that y'all learned something. That the postpartum period is hard as hell. But we mothers, we're strong. We're survivors.
Happy spring all. My name is Julia Rocky, and this is The Lesson of the Kayak. The picture shows me sitting in a solo kayak in the middle of a choppy bay, paddle straddled across my knees, strained smile on my lips. Behind me, a gray-green shoreline of trees and hidden cottages. Above me, gathering clouds with God rays breaking through. With my upper torso obscured by my life vest, safety first, you wouldn't know at first glance that I was 8 months pregnant. And you definitely wouldn't know that I had just finished throwing a bona fide tantrum. My husband and I were taking one last weekend getaway before baby arrived, and we'd found a cozy, well-outfitted rental in a quiet outpost of the Chesapeake Bay. The forecast foretold gloomy rain and chill for the duration of our long weekend, save for the afternoon we arrived. So as soon as we parked the car, we headed to the dock to check out the recreational equipment and take advantage of the partial sun and dry skies. Fishing poles, crab cage, canoe, kayaks, only single kayaks though, no doubles. Think you can handle one on your own? My husband asked. Sure, I replied with a level of confidence I hoped would become genuine once we hit the water. We usually take a tandem kayak for a reason. My husband knows how to steer, and I know how to sit. But it couldn't be that hard, right? I owed it to him in his past hours of aquatic chauffeuring to at least attempt it. Loading progressed without incident, as did our initial maneuvers beyond the dock. I was moving mostly in my intended direction, and 15 minutes in, I hadn't capsized. When we turned into the wind, however, my lack of kayaking ability rendered me impotent. The choppy waves slapped my boat. The brackish water stung my legs. My right arm was sore, my left arm was tense, and what did it even matter because I couldn't direct the vessel where I wanted anyway. The more water dripped on me, the more my arms pumped, the more I moved backwards, the more agitated I became. How foolish I must look, I thought, to be out here so pregnant and bulky, windmilling against Mother Nature. How vain not to admit my limits before throwing myself into the middle of the bay. Where was my natural instinct? Where were the immediate answers? Why couldn't I do what seemed so straightforward when watching others do it? A familiar lump in my throat began to rise, the lump of shame and frustration, usually alleviated only by tears. I trailed behind my husband's kayak in the hopes of experiencing my moment of weakness alone. No such luck. My helpful partner, noticing the widening gulf between us, paused and waited for me to catch up. And when I did finally slink alongside him, he could tell at once that I was a most unhappy camper. Pulling up his paddle and holding my kayak's carry handle, he gently asked, "Honey, what's wrong? Talk to me." Those magic, caring words, the ones that never fail to release the flood, especially when I'm trying to contain it, which I couldn't. "I can't even steer a kayak," I wailed into the void of the bay, empty except for us. "How on earth am I going to raise a human?" As the gray clouds thickened over our heads and the sun sank lower, I poured out every one of my hidden and inarticulate fears. Our entire lives are about to change forever. What if parenthood isn't what I thought it would be? What if I'm not the mother I thought I would be? How are we going to keep our marriage strong? Will we ever feel free again? Will I still get to be myself? And so on, punctuated by angry slaps of my paddle against the water and ugly tears further soaking my bulging life vest. A dam built over 8 months of anticipatory mystery had broken. Tired and pregnant, nervous and excited, impatient and annoyed, I was all these states plus wet. A truly terrible combination. My husband, bless him, did not attempt to answer me. He simply listened, nodded, said, "Me too. We'll figure it out together. I love you. Here, let me take a picture of you." That last one caught me off guard. "You want to take a picture of me now?" "Yes. We need to justify you carrying your iPhone out on open water." Today, 6 years after that picture was snapped. I see in the shot what was invisible to those who weren't there, like the tears on my cheeks and the blisters on my thumbs. But I also see what was invisible to me at the time. Chiefly, the sun rays defying the clouds and searching for reflection on the water below. They illuminate how this photo captured more than a moment in time. It captured a transition to a new state of being. Parenthood, like love, like spirituality, like any examined life, is an unbroken string of unanswered questions. I can rail against them, which, let's be real, happens often, or I can use them as a tool for discernment. In either case, my now big kid, oblivious to the active currents beneath my calm mom surface, begs for snuggles. And as I hold his warm, growing body close, I can more easily imagine the not-too-distant day when I put him in a kayak, point him toward the horizon, and say, "You've got this, honey, just like me."
Yep, thank you. Hi, my name is Sarah Mae Gosha, and this is my Mother's Day. A day is 24 hours, 1,440 minutes, 86,400 seconds long. However, there are countless moments in a day, depending on your view of it. On the best day you've ever had, you may have thousands of moments, fragments of time so rich and full they seem infinite. And then there is Mother's Day. The one day of the year where everyone, or at least it seems like everyone, celebrates their mothers. People gather, they make meals from treasured family recipes, they give sentimental gifts carefully chosen and lovingly wrapped. Commercials flood the airwaves for weeks exclaiming how a mother's love is the only love that never fails, the only love that always endures, and the only love that is unconditional. How do I know these things to be true about this one day? Because I have studied it for almost 40 years. You see, that's the thing about the commercials and, well, most people. They say the same thing when I tell them my mother does not love me. Some look surprised and say, "Oh, all mothers love their children." Some look shocked and say, "Come on, that's not true." Others look sad, their voices lowered to a whisper and say, "Maybe she has some mental health issues." None of those statements are true. And yet, for most of my life, I nodded along anyway. I have agreed just enough to let them feel better, to avoid making them feel uncomfortable. Because that's the thing. People don't want to hear the harsh truth. They want the world to make sense. They want mothers to love their children because anything else is too ugly to consider. So I live my life backing away, stepping aside, letting them have their perfect family illusions. It was easier to let them believe in fairy tales than to force them to face the reality of my own life. For much of my life, I couldn't face it myself. The truth is, my mother does not love me. Hard stop. It doesn't really matter why. I don't have to dissect it anymore. I don't need to twist myself into knots trying to understand why a mother could hate her own child. She did, she does, she will until her dying breath. My mother is a child abuser of me, of my sister. No, she is not sorry. No, she does not feel bad. No, she will never ask for forgiveness, and that is okay. and it is terrible. And some days it's worse than terrible, it's horrifically hard. Some days it's a weight so heavy that I wonder how my spine has not cracked under the pressure of it. Or maybe the joint replacement in my neck signifies what the weight finally did. Some days I find myself in my mid-40s still holding my breath, waiting for an apology that will never come. Some days I stare at Mother's Day cards in the store, each one screaming words and affirmations I never heard, never known from a mother. Words of sacrifice and devotion, about warmth and tenderness, about the kind of love that's supposed to be a birthright. A birthright. A phrase I've cried into my shirt sleeve more times than I can count. A love I never had. I used to wonder if there was something wrong with me, if maybe as a child I was too difficult, too needy, too much. Maybe I'd been born broken and she could sense it. I tried with all my might to change her mind, act appropriately, never make a mistake, and for goodness sake, never tell anyone what was happening behind closed doors. It didn't matter. What kind of child is so unlovable that their mother abuses them, hits them, kicks them, scars them? I've carried these questions around like heavy stones in my chest for years, feeling the weight of it in every aspect of my life. Maybe if I was perfect, she would come back. So I hustled, I worked harder, and looked for love and acceptance everywhere. But I know better now. I know that her failure to love me is not my failure. Her inability to be a mother says nothing about my worth and everything about hers. My survival, no, my thriving is not in spite of her, but because of me. What does Mother's Day mean for someone like me? It is a day to sit in the quiet and let myself cry, not just for what I lost, but for what I never had. It is a day of moments to show love to friends who have held me and advisors who have guided me. It is a day of seconds spent reminding myself I'm not unlovable, I'm not unwanted, I'm not the problem, I never was. Thriving means it's a day to stand tall and speak the truth. I have long tried to hide. I am motherless, but I am still loved. I am not perfect, but I am even me on Mother's Day. And now, that is enough.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, I'm Amanda Loudon, and I'm reading What Makes a Real Mother. Don't you want to know who your real mother is? That was the refrain I lived with as a kid. My parents adopted me at 3 months old, a fact they readily shared with me and our small town Ohio community. I felt loved, supported, even special, thanks to my mom and dad. But kids can be cruel. And after the question about my real mother became an accusation, you don't know who your real mother is, I began to feel shame. This discomfort only compounded as I went through the years. I did begin to wish I knew who that real mother was. My mom and I couldn't have been more different, and for an unfortunate string of years, I fantasized about finding that real mom. To my mind, my mother was odd, different from all the other moms, and certainly different from me. She belonged to a book club before book clubs were a thing. She forced on us strict early bedtimes. She gleefully rang the dinner bell for all the neighborhood to hear, beckoning my brother and I inside at 5:30 each and every day. It was embarrassing, and I was embarrassed of her. In elementary school, my mom was a room mother, something that for a time I liked. But when she overstayed her welcome at that gig when she was still at it in the 6th grade, I was probably more than once failed to acknowledge that she was my mom when she came around with the party treats. My mom was the strictest of mothers, from what I could tell, setting outrageous rules around every corner of my life. The content I could and couldn't consume, the clothing I could wear, and as I got older, my curfews were embarrassingly early. My punishments when breaking them, harsher than anyone's. I think I was grounded more often than not. My mom led a quiet, refined existence, mostly indoors. She encouraged me to stay in and play cards, visit with the relatives when they stopped by, or learn to knit and crochet. She played the piano, taught Sunday school, and spent plenty of time in the kitchen. In contrast, I was a wild child, born to run around in the woods, dive into the cool lake where we spent our summers, and jump into every game of football played by the neighborhood boys. My knees were perpetually scabbed, my skin tanned from the sun, my clothes dirty from time in the woods. I wish I could say I always treated my mom well during my teen years, that I wasn't disrespectful, that I didn't yell at her, or that I didn't wish I knew who that real mom was. But that was not the case. I was sure for a time that I knew that if I knew who my real mom was, I'd find a kindred spirit, or at least someone hip and funny. Someone who preferred the outdoors to in, who would allow me to hang out with whoever, whenever. Someone who didn't police my clothing, and who would give me unlimited time on the phone with my friends. She'd let me roam free with no accountability. She'd let me be me. That real mom would have allowed me to strip my walls of their childish wallpaper, turn up the volume on my record player, and only make her presence known to my friends on the rare occasion. That mom was out there, I just knew it. As soon as I turned 18, I was going to look her up. But around the time I went to college, I began to soften the lens I applied to my mom. With a little distance, I missed her, and maybe even started to value all the time and love she invested in raising the obstinate teen I admittedly was. I began to swap books with her, call her regularly from my dorm room phone, and seek out her comforting hugs. I even started turning to her for advice, and as time marched on, I began to appreciate her for who she was. My mom was truly the best of moms. Her rules had reason, her efforts to refine me a purpose, and despite my best rebellious efforts, some of that did stick. A former English teacher, my mom taught me to write well, something I eventually turned into a career. The hours she spent reading to me as a little girl turned into a lifelong passion for books. Mom demonstrated how to develop lasting friendships and community, and most especially gave me goals for how I wanted to parent one day. Her dedication to my father modeled for me what an ideal partnership should look like. Today, when I tell people I'm adopted and that I know nothing about my biological history, more often than not, they still look at me quizzically and ask, "Don't you want to know who your real mother is?" I tell the truth. I do know. She's the mom who loved me from the moment she set eyes on me at 3 months old until the day she died. She raised me thoughtfully and tenderly, and she was the strongest woman I will ever know. She was honest and ethical, as smart as they come, and no matter what the circumstance, I never heard her complain. Her name was Beverly, and I was lucky enough to call her mom.
Hi, folks. I'm Susan. This is the beautiful, terrible dark. As a mother, you learn to fear the dark, not like the child who trembles in bed about monsters in the closet. Instead, real terrors keep mothers awake at night. Meningitis, choking, leukemia, bullying, suicide. Many nights I've lain awake before dawn, examining the contours of my worries. But I wasn't always a mother. Once, a long time ago, I was a stupid teenager. Maybe there's some out there too. And when you're an adolescent, the dark transforms the ordinary into the magical. Joe Fogelman's Volkswagen Carmen Ghia, a complete death trap, I now realize, was painted the original 1960s orange, a color that conveniently disguised its rust. But for us, the high school theater geeks, with summer nights stretching empty before us, that little convertible became Cinderella's carriage, dusted with fairy magic. Joe picked us up, one by one, after we clocked out of our menial summer jobs. We had hours before curfew. Whoever got picked up first called shotgun. The rest of us pressed our slim shoulders together in the back seat. We all pooled our pocket change for gas money. Of course, sorry, Mom, we'd try to find some alcohol, but being, as I said, theater nerds, we had limited resources. We weren't like the cool kids with older cousins who would buy booze for them. Sometimes Vince, who kind of straddled the line between stoner and geek, would meet us at the quarry. He'd pop the trunk of his Land Cruiser, a portable bar from which we'd guzzle 7 and 7s and make bad choices. Joe always drove us home. He never drank. We loved him for that. But most summer nights, instead of cheap alcohol, we settled for cheap food. We made the magic from burgers in paper wrappers, The Clash, The Cure, and Prince on the radio, and Joe driving the back roads. He always had a route in mind, the whoop-de-doos on Seven Hills Road in Ellicott City, or swooping the curves out in western Howard County, where we'd all moo at the cows napping in the dim fields. Oh man, Joe loved to drive. One June night, when summer and freedom are fresh, Joe turned onto Volmerhausen Road. Ooh, we all knew what that meant. He smiled and turned up Duran Duran on the radio as he floored the Carmen Ghia on the straightaway. Then, when we reached the final crest on the long series of downhills to the river, Joe turned off the convertible's lights and then the ignition. The sudden quiet in the blackness struck us all silent. We heard the crickets' love songs blurring into a sweet buzz from the farm fields. We smelled each other's sweat and the hay. We could almost taste the breeze. At the top of the second hill, the long descent, Joe lifted his head and howled at the moon. We all tilted our heads back to look at the clouds glowing in the moonlight and howled all the way down to the river as the little car followed the laws of gravity and sped up. Spoiler, I didn't die. On the bridge over the river, Joe turned the ignition key back on, flipped on the headlights, and we emerged from our cocoon of summer happiness as we pointed toward home and our curfews. Later in college, I read Emily Dickinson's poem, I Think I Was Enchanted, when first a somber girl, I read that foreign lady The dark felt beautiful. Dickinson had Elizabeth Barrett Browning's poetry to enchant her nights. I had those communal evenings in Joe's magical rattletrap, racing through the beautiful dark. Slightly less classy. How I treasure that time. But now I'm also tortured by those memories because I have adult children. I know what my mother was doing on the nights while I was howling at the moon. She was waiting to hear the throaty growl of Joe's car in the driveway and me trying to be quiet, sneaking up the stairs 20 minutes past curfew. I know she laid stiff and barely breathing, as I did with my teenagers years later. My mother fretted, awake and alone, contemplating the ceiling and calculating her children's odds. Before cell phones and Find My Friends, my mom just had to wait and hope. One night, when a boyfriend fell asleep while driving and slid us into a grove of trees, she did get that call in the middle of the night from the hospital. Spoiler, again, I didn't die. But I feel like maybe my mother did, just a little, when she answered that call. Memory collapses time. I find myself staring at the ceiling of my own bedroom as both a mother and a daughter, terrified at what happens to children, my own, my friends, the world's. The thorough mingling of joy and terror, day or night, is a constant state of mind for mothers, for anyone, really, who loves. Sometimes the headlights beam through the quiet streets and children return to their beds. Sometimes the horrors ticking through mothers' brains come true and things go very dark. Just please, plead the mothers lying awake, making their bargains. Please not for a long, long time.
Thank you. Okay, thanks. Hi, everybody. My name is Laura Chauvin, and this is Entry Point. My mother is famously out of touch. Not with world events or fashion, but with friends, family, even her 3 children. She hates picking up the phone, and texting, a message sent via Pony Express would have a better chance of reaching her. But a few years ago, something began to shift. My mother started texting me daily, often before 7 a.m., cryptic messages. Arise, dance, lathe, pilot, gauze. Only intelligible to us 2 and anyone else who is addicted to Wordle. Got some fans out there. Initially, I avoided Wordle. I told myself it was another online fad, a craze. Answer 186. Then came January 20, 2022. A writer friend who knew I was working on a book of robot poems for children texted me, "Are you playing Wordle? Did you do today's puzzle?" Answer 215, robot. I began to play every day. On January 27th, only a week in, I gloated on Facebook about my first 2-guess win. Answer 222, mount. I was hooked. Wordle combines vocabulary with logic and gut feel, those woo-woo moments when players know that an answer is right.
those are 2 or 3 guest days. At other times, even having 4 or 5 letters in the green isn't enough to solve the puzzle. Other than my week 1 Facebook gloat, Wordle was a solitary pursuit for me until the summer of 2022, when a spine doctor found a suspicious growth on my mother's pelvic bone. 3 weeks later, I flew from Maryland to Florida so I could be there when my parents met Mom's oncologist. The morning of the appointment, my mother and I were drinking tea. She looked up from her cell phone and asked, "Are you playing Wordle?" Back when I was in my 20s, our relationship was easier. My parents lived 5 minutes away, and when my first child overshot his due date, my mother and I passed the time together. Taking long walks at the park and working the New York Times crossword together. But maybe what I believed was emotional closeness was actually physical proximity. The summer of my mom's cancer diagnosis, we were living 15 hours apart and only saw each other once or twice a year. I'd been making weekly check-in calls and avoiding any mention of politics. Distance hasn't been the only barrier between my mother and me. So when I returned home from Florida that summer in 2022, it was a shock to find a text message waiting for me every morning. "Almost gave up, 6 today," Mom wrote. "Rex is here and all is well." My brother Rex was the last of the kids to visit since my mom's cancer was discovered. He arrived just after I left and would be with my parents at appointment number 2. The doctor was still refining the diagnosis. I answered her text. 3 guesses for me. "Wow, you rock. Daddy is getting really nervous about tomorrow. I am praying for some good news." As an adult, I've avoided playing games with my mother. Yoga is the only thing in my life that passes as a sport. I'd never picked up golf, even though my parents' social lives revolved around perfecting their putting and swings. Cooperating on a crossword or jigsaw puzzle was safe, but Mom's competitiveness sometimes made me uncomfortable. When we were both using step trackers, she'd challenge me to a daily duel. I thought it would be a fun way for us to encourage each other, but my mother, who was used to dishing out mild insults on the golf course, sent messages like, "In your face," when she bested my step count. I wasn't sure what kind of rapport I wanted with her, but it wasn't that. Then we discovered our mutual Wordle habit, and the daily conversations began. "Today's puzzle was difficult," I texted my mother one morning. "What time is your appointment at the oncologist?" The doctor had narrowed her diagnosis down to 2 candidates, both of them blood cancers. If her tumor was a focused plasmacytoma, she would be treated with targeted radiation, no chemo. If it turned out to be a symptom of multiple myeloma, a more common but harder to treat cancer, she was in for a difficult and invasive few months. Her answer was immediate. "I got it in 5. Seeing Dr. S 10:45, I am feeling so much better today and hoping to get back into some kind of routine." The next morning, 1:47 a.m., "Got it in 3, I rock. Can't sleep, even with meds, so having a midnight snack." Me, 6:15 a.m., 3 for me also. "Sounds like you had a rough night. Has that been happening a lot?" Day after day, my mother reached out to me, and her entry point, answer 214, was Wordle. Our text threads began with scores, sometimes our guesses, or what made the day's puzzle challenging. From there, we flowed into conversations about details my mother might not have shared had our contact stayed limited to a weekly call. The way the tumor in her pelvis made it hard to get comfortable, her joy that the oncologist's expertise and intuition were correct. This was a plasmacytoma. This was how I entered a new relationship with my mother, where she is something like a friend. It took so little to reconnect, a word game we both enjoy, a small shared moment to remind ourselves that even as she was facing cancer many miles away, neither of us was alone. Answer 112.
Thank you. Hi, I am Faye McCrae, and this is The Gentle Work. When I was in 5th grade, we had a school-wide oratorical contest. Each student had to write a speech. First, we delivered it to our classmates, and the best speeches were selected for the final round in front of the whole school. I wrote mine about Harriet Tubman. I don't remember much about the speech itself, but I remember being so proud of what I wrote. I was fascinated by her. And not the stories you hear at the margins of textbooks, but by the ones I heard from the whispers of grown-ups. How tiny she was, her haunting visions, and yes, that big gun. She wasn't some quiet conductor on a mythical track or some sorrowful figure begging history to remember her. She was a visionary and a rebel. She stared down power unbothered and moved through anyone who tried to block her. And I loved that, even at 10. So I practiced day in and day out. I memorized every word, every pause, every inflection. And when I delivered the speech in front of my class, nerves and all, I did it. I was chosen to speak in front of the whole school. But when that big moment came, things did not go according to plan. My stomach clenched, my palms got wet, my breath went shallow, and when I stepped on stage and opened my mouth, I delivered what would have been a 5-minute speech in about 30 seconds. I got through every word, but did anyone hear it? Absolutely not. I don't remember much about how the audience reacted, but I do remember my teacher. Her face was caught somewhere between sympathy and very complex disappointment. I wasn't who she thought I was. And I told myself I wasn't who I thought I was either. From that day until well into high school, I told myself a big fat lie. I am awful at public speaking. I am deeply introverted. My rhetoric is unmatched, but say it out loud, I'll leave that to someone else. But here's the funny thing about the lies that we tell ourselves. Most times they aren't the lies we choose, they're the ones we need. My big fat lie protected me from ever feeling that kind of shame again, from ever being that little girl again. It helped me build a wall between myself and any future stage, any spotlight, any risk of getting it wrong. And we all have those moments, the ones that plant stories deep inside of us, stories that sound like truth, but really are just armor, gearing us up for some unknown battle, time and date to be determined, opponent, self. Over time, I started to realize those stories didn't come from the wise, grounded woman I've since become. They came from her, that little girl inside of me, still cowering backstage, the little girl who went home and cried, that little girl who couldn't meet the eyes of her family because their disappointment, real or imagined, made her the saddest. The funny thing about those little girls inside us is that they're always there, sometimes quieter than others, sometimes so loud. They don't knock, they don't send calendar invites, they just appear in your chest, in your voice, in that quiet panic before you take a big risk. And I know her. I know her swinging box braids, her sun-baked brown skin, her long, skinny legs, that thick, thick Queen's accent. She remembers everything. When she felt abandoned, when she felt unloved, when she felt ugly, when she felt like she wasn't good enough. Sometimes she was so happy, but sometimes, too many times, she was so scared. But here's what I've learned. When she shows up, I shouldn't turn my back. It's a sign that something needs tending. My job is not to silence her or dismiss her but to love her, to mother her. So I ask her, what do you need right now? What can I do? What scars still hurt? How can I heal them? Because this is what it means to mother yourself. It means recognizing when that little girl is speaking and not silencing her. She just needs to be seen. So let me say this gently. Even if we had amazing mothers, and many of us did, and many of us are, there are always parts of us that they couldn't reach. Not because they didn't want to, but because they were still learning how to mother themselves. Mothering yourself is not a rejection of your mother. It's an act of completion. It's a decision to go back to the parts of you that were left behind, to scoop them up and say, I see you now. I'm ready to listen. Now, as I mother myself, I carry this knowledge with both hands, because I know no matter how much I give to my children, they'll still have bruises that I didn't mean to cause. They'll still have moments I never knew hurt them. They'll inherit not just my wisdom, but my wounds. Self-mothering is not a one-time thing. It's a daily, sometimes hourly practice. It's slowing down when I want to go slow, when I want to push through. It's choosing grace when I feel shame creeping in. It's holding space for the little girl in me and saying, I've got you. We're safe now. And so I mother her in the quiet moments before bed, in the mirror when I catch my own tired eyes, when I stumble and I feel like I should have known better by now. I return to her again and again and remind her of something she was never told enough. You are worthy. You are wanted. You are not too much. You are not too late. Even if it's just me saying it, I love you, and that counts. Thank you. We would like to thank you so much for coming, thank the team for giving us a little extra time, and I'd like to welcome my amazing fellow storytellers back on stage. Please be sure to scan the QR code on the program and donate. Thank you.
Thank you all so much for those incredibly moving and inspiring performances. They were truly unforgettable. The next program in the festival lineup is novelist Eric Puckner, author of Dream State, which is an Oprah Book Club selection. And he'll be interviewed by Baltimore writer Elizabeth Dahl. And the first 50 people in the seats here in the Prose Pavilion at 1 p.m. will receive a complimentary copy of Dream State.